Who has a community of practice in their organization? You people, yeah? Who would like to start a community of practice? Yep, cool. And everyone else just came for the pizza and the beers, I guess. So I lied on the title. I said this was going to be about the secret sauce. It's not. It's going to be about the ingredients that we put into the secret sauce. And then you can create whatever you want with that. I would never want to come along and say, here's a magic formula for something, because everyone's situation is different and I can only share my experiences. So that's the idea of today. The way I'm going to run the session is in 3 main sections. And we're going to start off with chapter 1. What is a community? So when you think of community, what words come to mind? Togetherness, yes. Yep. People and yeah, commonality. Sharing ideas, yes, perfect. Safe space. Yeah, we need a safe space for community people. Yep. Anything else?
Communication.
Lots of communication. Yeah, perfect. Okay. And there's one more. Sorry, I missed that one. Support. Yeah, supporting one another. So I really believe in this statement, in that when we're growing up and in our early years, a lot of what we do later on in life is shaped by those early experiences. So I was going to just talk about my early experiences of community, because I think when people ask me today, what is your purpose? I can't say I'm very good at Agile, because you folks are way better than I. I can't say I'm the best doodler in the world or the best BA. I would say, for me, it's about helping others and building communities. That's probably my superpower that I think I've not mastered, but feel really passionate about. And so if I rewind way back to when my parents came from India to the UK, they came from a place called Punjab. Has anyone heard of the Punjab? A few of us, yeah. Have you ever been to a Punjabi wedding? A few of us, yeah. He's going, yeah. We've been to a few Punjabi weddings. Free alcohol, lots of dancing. Yeah, it's all fun. So my parents came from the Punjab, the northwest of India. And there's not a lot of us, about 27 million of us. But when you look around, you'll see us everywhere. So I don't know how we do that. But when I was young, my parents used to take me to India. Even though I'm born in the UK, they used to take me back to India. And my early experiences of the Punjab were a bit like this. This is what I used to see way back, these sort of mud huts almost. And when I used to walk around our village, I would see scenes like this. Anyone want to guess what's happening in this scene or what might be happening?
Stand-up manager.
I love that. Never had that before. That's amazing. Yeah. This is an example of what we call the panchayat in a Punjabi village. And it's where the village elders, they pretty much sit around playing cards all day. And they may get someone who walks up to them and says, hey, we're having a domestic dispute. Can you help us? And the village elders will drop their cards and they'll start helping these people. And there just seems to be this level of respect between the village elders and the rest of the village, which I found phenomenal, because a lot of these people, they've not been elected into a role. They're literally there just helping people and passing time. And a lot of villages run this way. The other thing that really impacted me as I was growing up was the spiritual side of communities. As I'm sure many of us who follow religions or as kids were sent to Sunday school or other schools, we may have had big impacts from those spiritual communities. And this is the Golden Temple in the Punjab. And again, I can only talk about my own experiences, but in Sikh temples, we have this notion of selfless and voluntary help. We go there, drop our ego as much as we can, and we just muck in and start washing the dishes if we want to. There's no permission that's needed. You can just walk in and start helping if you like. What I also notice is there's a lot of serious skills that are needed. Like I couldn't do what this guy does. And this is at the Golden Temple in India. It's the biggest community kitchen in the world. They feed 100,000 people a day. And so it's all on a voluntary basis, pretty much. So skills are really essential for that type of community, and equality. And this is regardless of any community. I think equality for me has always been a key to make sure that everybody feels like they are on an equal level with everyone else. And what we do in the Sikh temple is everybody sits on the floor and we eat together. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or a beggar off the street. everybody's welcome and we all sit together. But let's move on to communities of practice, because I think that's the reason why we're here. There's lots of definitions of communities of practice. And one that I think in industry is respected is from Etienne and Beverly Wenger Trainer. They are thought leaders when it comes to communities of practice. So they've done a lot of work in this space. And this is their definition. So it's where groups of people that share a concern or a passion for something, and they learn how to do it better. So that's one definition. I like to take that a little bit further because I actually prefer this definition, which is community practice. It consists of members who are more than just a community of interest. So they're really serious about something, and they practice their expertise, their competency, their learning, and they do all of this good stuff together. Because I've heard lots of people talk about, we have a community of practice. And then when I talk to them a little bit more, what I find is it's more of a community of interest where people come together and just have a chat. So for me, community of practice is a little bit more than just coming together and having a bit of a chinwag. And again, Beverly and Etienne, they have defined 3 key characteristics of community of practice. The first one is a common domain. So that's where we are all passionate about something that brings us together. Again, it's not like in EastEnders. Anyone watch EastEnders? Where everyone goes into the cafe and they all have a chinwag and they all natter over tea about everything and anything. So the community of practice is really where we have a common domain that unites us in some way. But that domain doesn't have to be externally accepted in any way. So if you imagine a really extreme example of young youths in gangs. Now, these folks have figured out how to survive in the big wide world, how to survive on the street. And so for them, when they come together, they may well be talking about some of the things that keep you alive on a day-to-day basis. Now, to you or I, that probably sounds like, well, that's not a community of practice. That's got nothing to do with being a practitioner. But for them, they have a common domain. It's something that they're really passionate about, and it's a thing that keeps them alive. So having this shared interest. And the other key thing is being committed to that community as well. So the fact that I'm part of a community of practice indirectly implies I'm committed in some way or other. I'm not just there to listen in and then walk away. To really be part of a community of practice, we're committed. And the second characteristic Etienne and Beverly mentioned is the community itself. We need people. So I don't know about you, but I often see organizations put up a website with a few social media features in there, and they say, this is our community of practice. But we don't have any level of engagement with people. And it just becomes a website. The tools are there, but there's no meaningful relationships between those people. And Etienne and Beverly also talk about the members join together to take part in activities and learning together. And finally, the community of practice is made up of practitioners. Again, these are people who have a specialized skill set and they're passionate about that. They develop new practices together. So one example of this could be nurses in a hospital. They come together for lunch and they talk about some of their experiences, about how they helped certain patients. And they share their war stories. And to them, they probably don't feel like a community of practice, but actually the behaviors and the ingredients of what they're doing, it's pretty much a community of practice because they're probably getting their best learning from that social interaction with other practitioners. So why do we need communities of practice? A bit of audience interaction here. Turn to the person next to you, or you can do it in threes, and think of a place that you both like. It could be a city, a village, whatever that might be. And try and come up with up to 10 things that are interesting about that place. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes just to do that. Off you go. Awesome. Thank you so much. So why on earth did I do that? Well, hopefully you can see the power of sharing views with one another. Having lots of people in the room with an expertise in something, cities, gives us so many more ideas. Fish cakes, and you mentioned about the Ramblers, the great falafel place, and a few others. So the power of crowds is amazing. And I'll take that a step further. You're probably wondering why I've put a cow on there. Well, is it a cow or an ox? That's supposed to be an ox. So in the 1900s, a guy called Francis Galton was a scientist, and he really didn't believe in democracy. And he felt that democracy was overrated. He attended at the time these British festivals where they would run these games. And what they would do was they'd have an ox at the front, and they'd ask the crowd to write down the weight of the ox. So you'd all have to have a guess. And what he did at the end was, and it's very rare that anybody actually got the weight completely right. And what he would then do is collect up all the tickets and total them up and find the average. And he didn't just do this once, he did this at many different festivals. And he found that actually, when he averaged out the weight, they were always within a couple of pounds of the actual weight. And over the years, there's been lots of other research that's been done in terms of how when we bring a group of people together that are diverse, that are not coerced into a certain perspective, so they're allowed to think freely, they often come up with a more accurate answer than so-called experts. Just look at the government. Anyway, and if you want to know more on that, check out Wisdom of Crowds, because this is such a powerful tool that we have. And no wonder in Agile we have our estimation done in this way. I mean, a lot of what we do in Agile is about sourcing the wisdom from other people around us. And that's just another reason why I think communities of practice can be so powerful, because they enable us to source the perspectives of so many different people. Another quick example, Xerox, back in the early 2000s, they used to have these, well, they probably still do, have these big photocopier printers. And they used to arm their engineers with big service manuals. And so when they used to go on site and repair these machines, the expectation from Xerox was they should know everything in that manual. And if they don't, they can reference it. But what do you think they often did when they came across a problem? They didn't have the internet, by the way. So they often, second step. Sorry? Absolutely. They'd phone a friend and they go, hey, Joe, I've got this problem. Have you ever come across this problem? I had something similar and this is what I did. Oh, let me try that. And what they found was these engineers had created this knowledge between themselves. It wasn't written down anywhere. And they would just call one another. And eventually Xerox cottoned onto this, and they found that this could be quite a powerful resource. And so they created what they call Project Eureka, which was an IT system, a database of these queries, where these engineers would then input these questions and answers. And they estimated that with all of that knowledge, they saved almost $100 million in wasted time and effort. So again, just another example of how when we source knowledge from our peers and our colleagues, we can come up with really powerful results. Has anyone heard of the 70-20-10 learning principle? Yeah. So a lot of L&D people that I work with from different organizations, they really value this thinking. And for anyone that hasn't come across this, the idea here is 10% of our learning comes from formal learning. And most of our learning comes from on-the-job learning, especially something like Agile. It's not something we can just read a book and start practicing and being really good at it. But there's a 20% effectiveness there, whereby we get our learning from social experiences, potentially through communities or by observing other people, observing our peers and colleagues. So again, a really powerful reason why communities of practice can be really useful. And this one blew my mind. So Josh Burson, who has now joined Deloitte, but he is a really well-respected researcher when it comes to learning. And a few years ago, he published this research, which he found that the typical knowledge worker spends only 1% of their working week on formal learning, which when you boil it down is about 24 minutes. But it just shows people are busy. We're all busy. We've got so many things on our minds, and learning takes a back seat. And so again, if we want to build our learning, one of the best ways is through those communities of practice and the people around us, because we're not going to have a lot of time for formal learning. And I think formal learning, it's almost like a birthday. Our managers tell us, you're going to get one course this year, make sure it's a good one. We've only got budget for one training course. But actually, shouldn't learning be a constant evolving thing that we're always focused on? Just some other examples on here. I couldn't have a presentation without Google being mentioned. So Google, 55% of their training courses are delivered by peer learners. They built this ecosystem internally where they have experts or so-called experts who are then helping other people, peer-supported learning. Really, really powerful. A big challenge I often hear from organizations is the people love them, but the management don't, because they see them as a waste of time. And I think one of the reasons is we find it really difficult to articulate the benefits sometimes to management. And again, this comes from Etienne and Beverly, so I don't take any credit for any of this, but they've split this out quite nicely. So if you're ever looking to set up a community of practice and you're looking for some sponsorship and some budget, then feel free to take some of these points, because they talk about short-term value for the members. And these are quite obvious. We help people get access to expertise in the organization. We make the work more meaningful. And from an organization perspective, we can help with problem solving. If we have a problem and we can't resolve it ourselves, we can lean on someone else in the organization. If we have that network that's very transparent to us, rather than just the people we're sitting next to, I can phone a friend. But then long term, if we think about enticing people to join your organization, maybe recruitment for future vacancies becomes, again, a bit of a superpower for the organization. If we can say we have a community of practice of agile people, of so many hundreds of people, I think that's a really compelling reason for many people to join an organization from a personal perspective. And for the organization, we're building thought leadership, just as BJSS are. I've seen so many of your guys going out there and doing talks and sharing the knowledge that you have with other people, other communities. It's a great way of people then being able to steer the strategy of an organization, because we have expertise. We know what we're talking about because we have that wisdom of crowds. Secret sauce time. Has anyone heard of the Tuckman model? Stages of team development. The Tuckman model, it's based on typically 4 different phases. So when we have a new team, we say they go through a set of almost phases as they mature. So they start off forming, storming, norming, and performing. Now, communities of practice are no different. Again, Wenger here, he's contributed to this model, but for communities. And what's really interesting about this, and I think this is another myth about communities, is we hope we bring a bunch of people together and we can just be hands off and let them carry on. And they're somehow organically going to become amazing and this community is going to thrive. Well, actually, if you look at this model, it doesn't quite say that. So the first step is when we build a community, we want to let people discover and imagine the possibilities. Let them buy into this idea of the community. And then the forming stage is really interesting. That's when we're starting to see the value and we're getting really excited about the community because we can see the possibilities and we're so excited right now. But then the dopamine runs out and we hit this lull period because people get really excited and then they think, I'm too busy. I've got lots of other things to do. And so other things take over, the priorities take over. And so we have this dip, but then, and this is almost like that chasm. Is it chasm or chasm? I never know the right pronunciation of that word.
Yes.
Chasm? Thank you. So it's a bit like the chasm. Some communities will continue, others will drop and fail at that point. But this is really the critical point. And it's from here that if we continue, the community will expand and mature. But it's going to have its ups and downs. It's never going to be great. we're always going to have good and bad times. A bit like when COVID hit and this meetup had to go virtual, maybe had a lull period, and now we're back on the up. And then eventually we may not need the community anymore. Maybe we've all decided we don't like Agile and we're going to do something else. I don't know. Maybe something else is out there. And so we can disband them. The really interesting thing is the dotted line. And that's the level of support that the community supporters need to provide in terms of effort. So what we see is right at the start, when we're just forming, we need a lot of support. We probably do need a community lead. We probably do need somebody who's going to set up events. We probably need someone to be nudging us a little bit, supporting us, showing us the value of the community. And it's as we hit this maturing phase that the support can take a step back and let the community now take over. And that's when the organic growth is going to occur. But what I see a lot of communities do is jump to that stage right at the start. And we find everyone gets really excited, but then nothing happens. There's a survey. There's always a survey, isn't there? There's a survey that one of the vendors of a big community platform release every year. They quizzed about 1,000 community managers from different communities about what are their biggest challenges. And the one that came out top was difficult to consistently engage members. That can become quite a difficult one, because once you have that core of people initially, how do you attract more people? How do you make sure that community continues to thrive? How do you make sure those inexperienced people come into the community? And there's a few others in there around, I think, some of the tooling. Here we go. Lack of the right tools, maybe that whole virtual engagement, maybe tooling could be improved, and a whole bunch of other things in there. But I think I'm going to stick with engagement for a moment. So here's the other secret sauce. So there's a rule called 99-1. And I think a big myth around communities is, well, if I have 1,000 people, I can get 500 of those people in my community. Well, no, because the 99-1 rule, which was originally defined for social media, states that 90% of the people are going to be lurkers. They're going to be takers. They will take, but not give anything back. And so then we're left with 10%. 9% of people are intermittent contributors. They'll contribute now and again when they find time. It's those 1%. They're your secret sauce. They're the people who are going to be heavy contributors, who are going to constantly go out of their way to help the community and really live and breathe the values of that community. Which, if you flip that around a little bit, what we're saying is, imagine we're posting things online, I don't know, articles. 90% of all of the activities come from 1% of our members or users. And 10% is coming from 9%. The rest are all lurkers. So that means 90% do not post. So if I'm running a community, if I'm starting a community, if I know this up front, then why am I wasting my effort trying to encourage the whole of the organization to be part of my community? Because I already know I need to tap into that 10% who are really going to make an impact to the community, who are really going to drive that community. So I think sometimes we spread ourselves too thin because we have this false sense of optimism that everybody's going to contribute. They're not. They're busy people. Not everyone is the same. And if I take this a step further, simple example, who shops on Amazon? Few of us, right? Amazon, and there are other reputable online retailers. We see the reviews on Amazon. That is predominantly 10% of the people who have bought that product. 10% if you're lucky. Actually, you'll probably be a lot less than that. So if you ever want to know how popular a product is, apart from all the bogus reviews and the bots, if you were to do it properly, about 10% of those sales are represented by those reviews, because most of us don't like to put a review, or we don't bother. I don't. So I'm one of the lurkers there. What are some of the ways you could increase community engagement? I'm looking at you. Pizza. Excellent. I'm going to come back to that. Any others?
survey to ask what they want.
Ask them what they want. Yeah, that'd be good. Assign time. Yeah, make sure we have enough time in the schedule for it. Yeah, we're all different, aren't we? We don't always check emails. Maybe I need a phone call. Maybe I need to see a big poster somewhere. Finding the time. Yeah, absolutely. I think someone else mentioned that as well. Yeah, we need to find the time. Yeah, sorry, conscious of time. I'm gonna. It's a good little linking. Has anybody read this book, Influence, by Robert Cialdini? Okay, got to read this book. So, this book is seen as the Bible for salespeople and marketeers. Robert Cialdini, he published this book way back, I think in probably the 80s originally. And it's the go-to book for most sales and marketeers because he talks about the 7 levers. There used to be 6. He's just published a new version of it, and now he's increased to 7. 7 levers of influence. So if you're managing a community, you're trying to bring in more members, there's some interesting stuff in here. There's these 7 levers, and I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour. So by no means is this doing justice, by the way, to this book. So first lever is authority. Has anyone seen this movie? What's the movie? Catch Me If You Can, yeah. And this is a true story based on Frank Abagnale. He's an American guy who was a bit of a hustler. And what he did was he faked his way to becoming a pilot for Pan Am Airlines. And he clocked over 2 million air miles. Gift of the gab. But if you hear him speak, he talks a lot about looking the part. And so we as human beings, as we're growing up, we're always told, people in authority, you must listen to them. They are important people. And so just by wearing the uniform, in this case, it's a great lever. Now, I don't know how you relate that to communities of practice, so I'm going to let you ponder over that. But I'm giving you the ingredients, and you can make the sauce. So you may choose to ignore or accept some of these. The other one is, who's this guy? Attenborough, yeah. Someone knows their nature programs. Excellent. David Attenborough. So I was thinking on the slide, who's the one person in the world that everybody likes? It's quite difficult, really. I came up with him. Hope everyone likes David. He's so cool. So the second lever is likability. When we like someone, we automatically buy into them. So if David turned up and said, hey guys, can I just get you all to pick up all the litter in Sheffield? I wouldn't even batter an eyelid, and I'd go, David, I'm there. I'm with you, my friend. I'm going to give up the beer and I'm going to go and tidy up Sheffield. So likability, really important. So if you're running your community, how do you get people to like you and everyone else in that community? And if I'm honest, and this is being recorded, I'm recording this for myself, but I've fallen out of love with the Agile community in some ways myself on social media because it's very toxic at times. When someone posts something and they're proud of what they've done in Agile, but they've used the word framework or method or project management. And then you get 20 other people jumping on their back saying, how dare you? Do you not know Agile is a religion? How dare you say Agile is a method or a framework? And I just think we're in danger in the Agile community of putting people off exactly that point. Because I hear so many of my clients today say, Paddy, we're here for Agile training, but we don't like Agile. Please don't use the word. Okay, it's better? Yeah, better is a good word. Right, so we want to be better. We're going to teach you how to be better. That's it. That's my word. That's what I use. Hang on, sorry. Did anyone look up when I looked up? Right, okay. So as humans, we don't like to be left out. If someone else is doing something, we like to join them, just as I did. But social proof. Tesla seems to be the in thing. Everyone's buying a Tesla. Well, electric cars. The neighbors have got a Tesla. My wife's gone, why haven't we got a Tesla? No, we should get a Tesla because they have one. And isn't electric cheaper than diesel? How do we get other people to like what we're doing and feel like they're missing out? That's a compelling reason for them to join us. Has anyone got a goal for this year? I'm going to say hypothetically. Aaron says, hey, you know what? I want to get back to work in 2 months from now. That's my aim. That's my goal. He just told how many people in the room? 20, 30 people in the room. Now, if I meet Aaron in 2 months' time, that's pressure. And he's made a commitment in front of so many people. Now he feels like he must carry that commitment through. Because as soon as we verbalize our commitment, our goal, it's a bit like going to the gym. If I just say to myself, I'm going to go to the gym, never going to happen. If I tell my friend Raj here or someone else, I'm going to go to the gym next week, there's pressure now because they want to see me go. So commitment. Let's get people to commit something and then they might join or do something in the community. Scarcity. We all know the tricks in marketing, how people do this. Yeah. Buy now, otherwise this offer's going to go. You've only got 3 more minutes. Do it, quick, quick. And we go, okay. Scarcity is another lever. Unity. Interesting. So this one's close to my heart. I'm Punjabi. There was a big farmers' protest, if anyone knows about it. There's a big dispute in India about farmers. And because my family and my history, we're farmers from India, it would have impacted our livelihoods, our families there. I'm not a farmer. I don't do farming. But for some reason, I felt compelled to join the protest because I felt like this is my crew. I'm part of this tribe. We are together. And even my son, he said, Dad, when are we protesting? I was like, should we protest? Dad, you always tell me, if you believe in something. And so there was one day where they had 250 million people protesting on the same day. The biggest human protest, organized protest in the world happened because of unity, because we all felt compelled. It's quite interesting. This is probably my favorite. Reciprocation. So the beers, get back to the beers. When somebody gives you something or offers you something as a favor, how do we feel? We owe them. So we owe you guys. So in Brazil, there's an experiment done at McDonald's, and they ran it a couple of times with 2 different groups. So have you ever seen when you go to a McDonald's, they sometimes give you a balloon if you've got children with you? So this is in the early days. They'd run this as an experiment. And what they tried to do was when people left the restaurant, they would give them a balloon to one group. The other group, they gave them the balloon as you entered the restaurant. Guess who spent more money? The people who got the balloon at the start. They spent on average 25% more than the other people. And in the book, he talks about how this one trumps most other levers. So even if you don't like the person and you don't have any of those other linkages with those people, if they've done something for you, you feel obliged to do something back. So give everyone a free mug, would be my advice. Okay, very quickly, just a few communities that I've been engaged in. I'm not going to bore you with all of these, but a couple of interesting ones. So at Deutsche Bank, when I was there, we were part of their Center of Excellence, and we were trying to get people into Agile. The leaders were saying all the right things, but nobody was believing them. And so what we did was we set up a community called the Agility Guild, and within the 3 years of us setting this up, we eventually got up to 5,000 people who were part of that community. I can't say they were all active. Probably 90% were the lurkers. Yeah. But we managed to build this community. And I'll give you one golden nugget if you're ever trying to create a community and getting people really engaged. We set up the Agile Awards. People love a prize. We set up the Agile Awards, and we based the awards on categories that were very much aligned with Agile. So one was the most collaborative team, one was the most collaborative vendor, one was the team who delivered the most value, all of these good Agile values. And overnight, we had 80 applications from around the company. For us, that was great because one thing, we weren't sure how many people are using Agile in the organization. And secondly, what have been some of the successes? And overnight, we had 80 case studies pretty much documented because they had applied for those awards and written us a little brief. And we gave them an award. People were so enthused. They were like, when's the next set of awards coming? When are they coming? So straight away, we managed to get them enticed. I was fortunate enough to set up the BA community of practice. And again, talking about that early stage of the community, if we just said, hey, everybody, let's just be a community, I don't think it would have worked. So we actually had leads aligned to these different pillars because these were the things that people had told us they care about in the community. So we had individuals who were then on the hook to grow and engage with people on these different topics. And then what we did, was we used the good old Kano model. Anyone ever use Kano model? To plot some of the initiatives to say, well, what are the high effort things that we want to do and how much value do we think they're going to deliver? So that's the vertical axis. And what we found were we launched a publication, but that was really high effort, but it gave so much satisfaction to people. We launched some training that the community members were running themselves, loads of logistical nightmares around that. But again, huge amount of effort, but satisfaction was high. Some quick wins. We set up events, internal and external. Guess what? The external events received the most amount of satisfaction because people felt they were more credible because we had external people coming in. I would say this is a quote that I really believe in. It's on the bottom of my signature. And I think I wouldn't have got the role that I'm in now had I not gone through those experiences with those communities of practice, because even my role at Deutsche Bank for getting the Agile Head of Learning was a 2-minute conversation with a hiring manager who said to me, I'm setting up this new team. And I said, oh, I'm interested. And she said, what can you do? I said, I don't know. What do you want me to do? And she said, can you train? I said, I did some training through the community of practice. And she went, brilliant. You'll be my Agile Head of Learning for Deutsche Bank. And I went, there we go. It's done. That's how I got my job. So on that note, I'm going to finish. Thank you so much. You guys have been awesome. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I hope I lived to some expectation today. If you do want to keep in touch, that's my Hotmail address. You can ring me. But please do check out the podcast as well. And I just want to thank the organizers as well. Thank you so much for having me today.